All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Rebecca Brown. I am the ESSER Program Manager with the Office of Public Instruction, and I'm here today to talk to you about the ESSER II Close-Out Process. My contact information is up on the slide here. Wendy isn't with me this morning, but you can also contact Wendy with any questions. We're available by phone or by email, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. We will also have our contact information at the end of this presentation as well. So our goals for today are to talk about the ESSER II timeline, what to expect in the next few months. We'll talk about the final expenditure report, which you'll submit to close out the grant. We'll also talk about finding feedback when you submit those reports, and then we'll do some wrap up and resources at the end, as well as a question and answer session. So to begin talking about the ESSER II timeline, your ESSER II obligation deadline is September 30th of 2023. If you have any amendments to your ESSER grant in eGrants, those amendments should be submitted by the end of June so that there's enough time to process and go back and forth on those to get them approved and paid out before the September deadline. Cash requests will be due by September 25th of 2023. Remember, cash requests need to be submitted by the 25th of the month in order to be paid out by the 10th of the next month. And the reason that cash requests are due by September 25th is because a cash request and a final expenditure report cannot be processed in the same month. eGrants will not allow that to happen. So cash requests need to be submitted in September, and then final expense reports, which I'm going to refer to as FERs, those final expense reports are due by October 25th, 2023. And then final payments will go out on November 10th of 2023. So again, those cash requests need to be submitted by the end of September. FERs will be submitted by the end of October, and everything will be paid out by November 10th. If you haven't yet, you need to spend down your remaining ESSER II funds because we are coming up on the deadline here. If you are closing by the end of this current fiscal year, we encourage you to spend down ESSER II and close out before the end of June. That way you don't have to carry the grant into a new fiscal year. And if you were going to do that, then you would want to submit cash requests by May 25th and then submit FERs by June 25th. And that way everything is closed out and done by the end of the fiscal year. That is not required, but if you are able to do it, it may make your life a little bit easier. So now let's talk about the final expenditure report, or the FER. This is the last step necessary to close out a grant application in the eGrants system. The FER gets submitted at the end of the grant when all grant funds have been spent down or when the grant period is ending. For some grants, the FER ends one fiscal year and then rolls the remaining funds into the new fiscal year. However, for the ESSER grants, the FER closes the grant. No further amendments or cash requests will be able to be submitted or processed after the FER has been submitted and approved. So this guidance is specifically for the ESSER grants, and the FER will close the ESSER grants. There is no rollover of the funds. The FERs for ESSER II, which, by the way, ESSER II in eGrants is called ESSER Consolidated. Those FERs must be submitted by October 25th of 2023. Starting in October, if your ESSER II FERs have not been submitted and approved, you will not be able to draw down funds from ESSER III. So the ESSER II funding needs to be spent down and closed out. Otherwise, your ESSER III funding will not be able to be drawn down. So again, if you haven't yet, you need to submit your FERs for your ESSER II grant budget pages. Before you create an FER, you must have at least one cash request which has been approved and paid out in eGrants. We encourage you to fully spend down your grant using cash requests before submitting an FER. So the ideal process is to spend everything, request it all through the cash request, and then submit the FER at the end after everything had spent down to $0. And again, a cash request and an FER cannot be processed within the same month, which which is why you want those cash requests submitted in September so that you can do the FER in October. So where do you find the FER? You'll need to log into eGrants, and then once you get into the eGrants Access Select page, you'll need to go to fiscal year 2021 for the ESSER grants, but then click on the payments button next to the grant that you're looking for so that you can see the payment summary. That's this page here. And in the payment summary, notice you are going to have multiple budget pages showing. These are the budget pages where you have received funding. So you might not have funding in all of the budget pages, but you will have funding in more than one. You will need to create and submit an FER for every budget page where you received funds. So this is different from the ESSER I grant, where in ESSER I you only submitted one FER and then you were good to go. In ESSER II, you'll have to submit multiple FERs, one for each budget page where you submitted the funds. After you are in that payment summary page, you'll click on the View Cash Request Expenditure Reports button, and then you will have to select which program page or budget page you're looking for. So like, for example, if you selected ESSER Base, it would show you all the cash requests for ESSER Base. And again, you'll need to create and submit an FER for every budget page where you received funds. And then after you select the budget page, so in this one, we're in ESSER Base, the expenditure reports are at the bottom of this menu below all your cash requests. So if you have multiple cash requests, you may have to scroll down to find your expenditure report, but then that is where it is located. And then you will select a create button. And unfortunately, from my view, I don't have a create button, so I couldn't get a screenshot of that for you, but it will be here with these buttons in the expenditure reports part of your menu. You'll create new expense report. And then it'll open up something that looks like this. Whoops, there we go. Now, important parts of the FER, you have columns. And each one of those columns you need to look at and review and make sure that it is accurate. So first two columns are your object code and your use of funds. So we have different object codes and different use of funds. So you'll notice there are multiple use of funds for every object code. This is every possible combination between object code and use of funds. So you've got 100 technology, 100 dedicated learning devices, etc. And then it starts over on 200 technology, 200 dedicated learning devices, and goes all the way down. So you will notice that the FER for ESSER II is a lot longer than the FER for ESSER I was, because the ESSER I didn't have these use of funds. Then the next column is your expenditure description and itemization. That is a description of the object code. So 100 is salaries, 200 is employee benefits. Then next one is OPI final approved budget. This is what has been approved in your grant application. eGrants pulls this directly from the approved budget in your grant application. So for example, if you created an amendment but you never submitted it, that amendment will not be reflected here. It is only the approved budgets or amendments that have been actually approved that will show in here. Then funds release, this shows what OPI has already paid out for that line item. This is pulled from the cash requests, which have been approved and paid. This previously reported expended column is generally $0. I've never seen money in this column for the ESSER grants. But then the next column is the accumulated expenditures to date. This is where you will fill in what was actually spent out of the grant. So these first columns are white. You're not going to fill those in. It's the gray boxes that you will be filling in. You have a different line item for each use of funds within each object code. If you haven't budgeted anything within that use of funds, it's okay to enter 0. But then you will enter what was actually expended and then select Save Page down at the bottom. If you don't save your page, none of your changes will save, and that will be very sad. So make sure you save the page. And then notice that the accumulated expenditures to date is not required to match the funds released column. This is a way that you can adjust your accounting and e-grants to match. So these are essentially accounting adjustments. But if those two numbers don't match, it still must fall within that 50% leeway. That 50% leeway means that you can request up to 50% above or below what is in the approved budget buckets without having to submit an amendment to change your budget. So this can be an accounting adjustment in here. If at all possible, though, it is a best practice if your approved budget in like your amendments matches what was actually spent. Then if you didn't use all the funds from your grant, if you have funding left over, the accumulated expenditures to date will not match the OPI final approved budget. Effectively, what this means is that you are refusing the remainder of the grant funds. If this happens, if you are refusing those funds, our ESSER grant accountants may contact you to verify and receive documentation that, yes, in fact, I am refusing the remainder of these funds. Then after you're done filling out that part of the FER, down below there is an expenditure period end date box. You'll have to select the date. This is a drop-down menu. You'll have to click on this, and then the end date for ESSER II is 9/30/2023, and then make sure you save your page. Then look at the recap section down below. This is towards the bottom of your FER. This will show essentially everything that you have filled out in your FER, and look specifically at the balance due to LEA. This right here shows how much money you will be receiving from the FER. So again, that balance due LEA, that might just be $0, but if you have any funding remaining that you're requesting, that will show in this line. And then make sure your final expenditure box is checked. If this is not selected, it will not close your grant and you'll have to do another expenditure report. So make sure you check this box and then save your page. And then if you are requesting any funding or there are any differences between the approved and paid columns, you will want to upload documentation of those differences. And this is for audit purposes. An auditor needs to be able to see the direct connections between your budget and your amendments and your cash requests, and then finally your expenditure report. It all needs to flow through, it all needs to tie together. If there are any differences between your budget and cash requests and the FER, please make sure that you upload documentation of that. That can be receipts, invoices, pay stubs, or like if you are requesting additional funding, which wasn't already paid out, or even if you did just an accounting adjustment. We really encourage you to upload documentation of that. And that just helps kind of cover everybody's bases so that there is a really clear, concise audit trail of the changes that were made. And again, that you have a button right here towards the end of your application that allows you to upload documentation. In general, that documentation needs to be uploaded as a PDF. I know that sometimes there have been technical challenges where if the document submitted was not a PDF, then it doesn't actually upload correctly and it won't open on our side. So please make sure this is a PDF file when you upload it. Then to submit the FER, you'll select Save Page, run a consistency check, and then submit it to OPI. At that point, it comes to the grant accountant who will review it and either approve it or send it back with questions. After OPI reviews your final expenditure report, you can find the feedback. You'll need to scroll down to your expenditure report menu. You'll need to select the expenditure report and then click on Review Summary. This will open up a second menu that has the steps that the review went through. You'll click on the most recent, the one that says SEA Accountant, and then click on Review Checklist. This is going to open a second tab in your internet browser, which only works if your pop-up blockers are turned off. If you have pop-up blockers on, the second tab will not open and you won't be able to see the feedback from OPI. So we've got resources on how to turn off your pop-up blockers, and those resources are posted on our website as well. Then in that second window that opens, you'll be able to see the review checklist, a box yes or no, whether or not it was approvable, and then any feedback that was left. So in this screenshot here, you can see the expenditure report was approvable, and so all it says is the date and the initials of the person who reviewed it. If your expenditure report was not approved, then this will have specific feedback on how you can fix it and then resubmit. So just in closing, in closing, we've got resources on our OPI website. If you go to the main OPI website at opi.mt.gov, there is an ESSER button on the right-hand side of that screen. I've also linked the eGrants login page on this slide for you, and this is a screenshot of the ESSER page. We have hours and hours of resources and videos and trainings that we have put out. We really want to make that information available to you so that you can find it easily. If you are clicking around on our website and you can't find what you're looking for, please just shoot me an email and I'll get it to you right away. We want to make sure that you have access to the information that you need. So at this point, I'm going to open it up for question and answer. I will stop the recording. Thank you again so much for being here with me today, and I hope you have an excellent day.